My name is Sarah. I'm 30 years old, and today I want to share the story of how my understanding of love and trust completely transformed after marriage. Before I got married, I had such beautiful dreams. Dreams of finding that perfect partner, building a life filled with laughter and deep connection. And for a while, I truly believed I had found exactly that. It all began 4 years ago when I met Daniel. He was everything I thought I wanted in a partner. Intelligent, witty, with warm eyes that seemed to see right through to my soul. We met at my cousin's art exhibition, and it felt like something straight out of a romantic film. I can still picture the moment he walked over to me. I was standing in front of a particularly striking painting, completely absorbed, when I sensed someone beside me. "It's about the fragility of human connection," he said softly. "At least, that's what I see." I turned to find him looking not at the painting, but at me. There was something so genuine in his expression that my usual shyness melted away instantly. "I was thinking exactly the same thing," I replied, surprised to find my voice steady. We spent the rest of the evening moving from painting to painting, sharing our interpretations, laughing at how similarly we viewed the world. By the time the exhibition closed, we had exchanged numbers, and I felt that unmistakable flutter of possibility. After that night, Daniel and I became inseparable. We'd spend weekends exploring hidden bookshops, trying exotic foods at tiny restaurants, and taking long walks through the city at sunset. He would send me thoughtful text messages throughout the day, always noticing when I needed encouragement. One evening, after dating for about 14 months, Daniel took me to the botanical gardens. It was spring, and the cherry blossoms were in full bloom, creating a canopy of pale pink above us. We wandered through the winding paths, hand in hand, until we reached a small, secluded pond. Daniel suddenly grew quiet, his expression serious. He guided me to a bench overlooking the water. "Sarah," he said, his voice slightly trembling, "these past months with you have been the happiest of my life." My heart began racing as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. He opened it to reveal a delicate emerald ring. He remembered I'd once told him I preferred colored stones to diamonds. "You understand me in ways no one else ever has," he continued, his eyes never leaving mine. "Would you make me the happiest man alive and marry me?" Tears welled up in my eyes as I nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "Yes," I finally whispered. "Nothing would make me happier." He slipped the ring onto my finger, and we held each other as the sun set behind the trees. Everything felt perfect, like the universe had aligned just for us. Our wedding was intimate and magical. Just 40 of our closest friends and family, gathered in a rustic barn decorated with wildflowers and twinkling lights. I wore a simple silk dress, and Daniel couldn't stop smiling the entire day. We wrote our own vows, promising to support each other's dreams, to communicate honestly, and to choose each other every day. As we danced our first dance to "Can't Help Falling in Love," Daniel held me close and whispered, "This is just the beginning of our adventure, Sarah." In that moment, I believed him completely. The early months of our marriage were blissful. We moved into a charming apartment in a vibrant neighborhood. Our evenings were filled with cooking experiments, lively discussions about books we were reading, and planning future travels. Daniel would bring me coffee in bed every morning, and we'd start each day talking about our hopes for the hours ahead. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, things began to shift. It started with small changes in Daniel's behavior. He began working later and later, often not coming home until I was already asleep. When I asked about his day, his answers became vague, distracted. Just busy with the new project, he'd say, not meeting my eyes. Nothing interesting to report. I told myself not to worry. His architectural firm was taking on bigger clients, and success always requires sacrifice. I supported him, making sure dinner was ready whenever he got home, never complaining when our weekend plans were repeatedly canceled. Then came the mysterious phone calls. Daniel would step onto the balcony to take them, speaking in hushed tones. If I walked nearby, he'd quickly end the conversation. "Just work stuff," he'd explain with a tight smile. "Nothing for you to worry about." But I did worry. Something didn't feel right. One evening, about a year into our marriage, I was folding laundry when Daniel's phone lit up with a message. I didn't mean to look. I've always respected privacy. But the preview caught my eye. "Missing you already. Last night was perfect." My hands trembled as I set down the shirt I was folding. My mind raced with possibilities, each more painful than the last. When Daniel came home that night, I confronted him, showing him the message. "It's not what you think," he said immediately, his face paling. "It's complicated." "Then uncomplicate it for me," I pleaded. After a long, tense silence, Daniel sighed deeply and sat down. "There's something I haven't told you," he began, his voice barely audible. "Something I've been hiding since before we met." My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear him as he continued. "I have a son," he said finally. "He's 7 years old. His name is Ethan." I stared at him in disbelief. A child? How could he have kept something so important from me for all this time? "His mother and I were never married," Daniel explained, words tumbling out faster now. "It was a brief relationship in college. When she told me she was pregnant, I panicked. I wasn't ready to be a father. I gave her financial support but kept my distance." He paused, looking down at his hands. "The message you saw was from her. I've been seeing Ethan secretly for the past few months. She was referring to me taking him to the amusement park yesterday." I felt like I was drowning, not because he had a child. I've always loved children, but because he had lied to me for so long about something so fundamental. "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. "Did you think I wouldn't accept your son?" "At first, I was ashamed of how I'd handled the situation," he admitted. "Then as we got more serious, I was afraid of losing you. The longer I waited, the harder it became to tell the truth." That night was the first of many long, difficult conversations. I learned that Daniel had been gradually trying to become more involved in his son's life, guilt-ridden over his years of emotional absence. The late nights, the secretive calls, all connected to his attempts to rebuild a relationship with Ethan while keeping me in the dark. I was hurt beyond words. Not by the existence of Ethan, but by Daniel's lack of trust in me, in us. How could we build a life together if he couldn't share something so important? The following weeks were tense. Daniel kept apologizing, promising there were no more secrets. But the damage was done. The foundation of trust I thought we had built was cracked. I suggested couples therapy, and remarkably, Daniel agreed. Our therapist, Dr. Martinez, helped us navigate the complex emotions. My sense of betrayal, Daniel's shame and fear. Relationships aren't destroyed by mistakes, Dr. Martinez told us during one session. They're destroyed by the inability to be vulnerable and honest about those mistakes. Slowly, painfully, we began to rebuild. Daniel introduced me to Ethan, a bright, curious boy with his father's eyes and a passion for dinosaurs. At first, our meetings were awkward, but gradually, we developed a genuine connection. I'll never forget the day Ethan asked if he could call me Sarah instead of Ms. Sarah. It was a small thing, but it felt like progress. 6 months after the revelation, Daniel and I were sitting on our balcony, watching the sunset. There had been many tears, many difficult conversations, but also moments of new understanding. I'm still angry sometimes, I admitted. Not about Ethan, he's wonderful, but about the fact that you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth from the beginning. Daniel nodded, his eyes sad but clear. I know, and I'll probably be making up for that for a long time. But Sarah, if you're willing to keep trying, I promise I will never hide anything from you again. I want us to be truly partners, no secrets, no shame. It wasn't an instant fix. Trust, once broken, doesn't mend overnight. But as the months passed, I saw a real change in Daniel. He became more open, not just about Ethan, but about his fears, his insecurities, everything he had once kept hidden. We rearranged our apartment to create a space for Ethan on the weekends he stayed with us. I learned to be a supportive presence in his life, not trying to replace his mother, but offering something unique of my own. 2 years later, as I sit here telling this story, I realize that what happened was both the greatest challenge and the greatest gift to our marriage. It forced us to confront the gap between the perfect love story I thought we had and the messy, complicated reality of being human. Daniel and I are not the same people who stood in that barn making perfect promises. We're more real now, more honest. We've learned that love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up authentically, even when it's terrifying. Last week, Ethan, now 10, beat us both at Monopoly and couldn't stop grinning about it. As I watched Daniel laugh and ruffle his son's hair, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Not for the pain we went through, but for the stronger, truer relationship that emerged from it. The love story I dreamed of as a young woman was a fairy tale, beautiful but shallow. The love I have now has depth, has weathered storms, has proven itself resilient. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that love isn't found in grand gestures or perfect moments. It's built day by day, through hard conversations, through forgiveness, through choosing each other even when it would be easier to walk away. And sometimes, the greatest love stories aren't the ones that unfold exactly as we imagined, but the ones that surprise us, challenge us, and ultimately transform us into better, more compassionate versions of ourselves. Today, when I look at my marriage, I see something far more valuable than the flawless romance I once craved. I see two imperfect people, committed to growing together, creating a family that may not look like what I expected, but contains more love than I ever thought possible. And that, I've come to believe, is the hidden truth about love. Its power isn't in perfection, but in its ability to survive our imperfections and still create something beautiful. Sarah's story carries two profound lessons for anyone navigating relationships or considering a lifelong commitment. The first lesson is about the crucial importance of honesty in any relationship. Love thrives in transparency, even when the truth is difficult or uncomfortable. Daniel's intention to protect Sarah and himself by hiding the existence of his son ultimately caused deeper pain than the truth would have. No matter how frightening vulnerability may seem, withholding significant truths from someone you love creates an invisible barrier between you. True intimacy can only exist where there is complete honesty. Before committing your heart to someone, ask yourself, do we create a space where difficult truths can be shared without fear? Can we be completely ourselves with each other, even the parts we're not proud of? A relationship built on partial truths is like a house with a hidden structural flaw. It may look perfect from the outside, but it cannot withstand life's inevitable storms. The second essential lesson from Sarah's experience is that real love is not about finding someone perfect, but about loving someone completely, flaws and all. The romantic beginning of their relationship felt magical precisely because they were both presenting carefully curated versions of themselves. True love began not with the proposal in the botanical garden, but in the painful conversations that followed Daniel's revelation, when they finally saw each other fully and chose to stay. Before making a lifelong promise to someone, look beyond the romantic moments and magical feelings. Observe how they handle conflict, how they respond when they're wrong, how they treat others when no one is watching. The strength of a relationship isn't tested during the easy times, but during moments of difficulty and disappointment. Sarah and Daniel's journey reminds us that the most authentic love stories aren't about perfection. They're about two people, continuously choosing each other despite having seen each other's deepest flaws. Their story encourages everyone to approach love not as a fairy tale, but as a profound human connection that requires courage, forgiveness, and unwavering commitment to truth. In the end, perhaps the most beautiful love stories aren't the ones that unfold without challenges, but the ones that survive them and emerge stronger, deeper, and more genuine than before.